I gotta control every fucking piece. That's the only way I could protect me and my family. You know, my dad did a lot of dumb shit that I never agree with, but I realized to get what the fuck I want, I gotta use all of them. Good parts of him, the bad parts of him. What's next? Gotta up our game. It's the only way to get to the top.
Tariq has to up his game, it's the only way to get to the top. That's what Tariq says in the official teaser for Ghost Season 4 Part 2. And he is going to have to turn it up in all sorts of different ways if he is going to reach the top of the food chain like he hopes. He needs to use all the good parts of Ghost and all the bad parts, but at the same time, he does find himself extremely exposed for a few reasons that we're going to break down in this video. We're going to look at Tariq's hallucination scene, his relationship with Braden and his selfish tendencies, his next move in terms of targeting Anya Covington, but how that leaves him vulnerable to an attack from the other direction. We're also going to take a look at the death of Salim, and how that could come back to haunt him, and there are other lot of factors such as 2-Bit, L, Detective Carter, Tasha, Davis McLean, and Zion. So there is a lot to unpack when it comes to all things Tariq St. Patrick, and we are going to have a breakdown for each and every single main player over the next coming week, before I decide to take a couple of days off. But let's get into all things Tariq St. Patrick for Power Book 2 Ghost Season 4. Now heading into Season 4, there was one thing on Tariq's mind: revenge. He wanted to bring down everybody who betrayed him, from Effie, Diana, Drew, Kane, and Noma. But him and Braden found themselves in a really vulnerable position. They had a bounty on their heads, they had no cash, no alliance, and pretty much no way out until, of course, Junior presented him with information that he then used as leverage. One of the conditions and agreements that Noma and Tariq came to was how Tariq wouldn't sell any product, and that is something we're going to come back around to in just a second. But since then, we've seen Tariq living life as a normal civilian. However, this is where it gets quite confusing when it comes to Tariq's mindset. One minute he wants in the street game, he then sees how dangerous the world is and the consequences that come with it, and then he wants out. But when he is out, he realizes he doesn't want to live like a normal civilian. He then wants to be back in and at the top to protect the ones he loves. And that's one of the main problems with Tariq.
I'm everything you could be once you start doubting yourself. Stop pretending that people's rules and expectations apply to your life. Be the man that your father was always afraid to be.
This hallucination gave us a glimpse of a couple of different futures and scenarios that he pictured. What if he did what Diana said and came out of the street game? How would his life look as a normal family man? But even if he now does become a regular civilian, he'll never be able to run from who he is, what he's done, his past mistakes, and the enemies that he's created. His life will always catch up to him, just like it did for Ghost, and that's why Kane was here. He's been waiting to do this to Tariq since he met him way back in Season 1, and it was a reminder, even if Tariq does try to leave, he'll always have enemies like Kane, and no doubt others. He also lied to Diana about leaving the game, because that's what Ghost did, and that's what Tariq does. They lie and they're selfish. But, in essence, he had one foot in and one foot out, just like Ghost, and just like Tommy warned him against, which of course, led Diana to pull in the trigger because of his lies. He then came face to face with himself and realized, if he's truly going to become who he wants to be, then he needs to stop doubting himself. He needs to stop letting others' rules and expectations apply to him, which is something Ghost used to do.
See, people take you at face value, Simon. Me, well, I have to transform to meet everyone's expectations constantly. Truth isn't one thing because I'm not one thing.
Ghost was someone who was constantly adapting and changing to meet other people's expectations, but that's not what Tariq wants for himself. He wants to take it one step further, and that's why he had to kill his old self and in a way, reinvent himself, using everything that he's learned from Ghost, Tommy, Kanan, Tasha, and even Dre. But his next move is to get some leverage by targeting Anya Covington, which does give us a hint that Part 2 will probably pick up pretty much most likely straight away where they left off in 405. But targeting Anya, in my opinion, is a huge mistake, because it really does risk exposing his family once again. Noma even said in episode 1, she's never going to forget how he went after Anya, and now he's more so in danger after he went back on their agreement. Tariq has spent a large portion of Power Book 2 Ghost to try and protect his family. In Season 1, it was Tasha and the entire court case. In Season 2, the focus shifted towards more so Yasmin and Grandma Estelle, where he did manage to reunite Tasha with Yasmin. In Season 3, he realized that Grandma Estelle wasn't safe because of the game he was in, and so he also managed to get her to safety. So, he's gone through all this trouble to keep his family safe, but going after someone like Anya does open the can of worms, and it does risk his family being targeted. Just because Tasha is in WITSEC, it doesn't mean she's safe. And I think Detective Carter mentioning how she could be bounced out of WITSEC at any given moment may even be a hint at what's to come in part 2. If Detective Carter really wants to mess with Tariq and just cause a bit of chaos and mayhem, then I'm sure he'll have no qualms over making that phone call to get Tasha out of WITSEC. And Carter is another issue entirely, and I'm going to come back to him in just a moment. But on Tariq targeting Anya and using her as leverage, it is a very dangerous game to play, especially if Noma can get her hands on Tasha, which is where I kind of want to take it back to something Zion mentioned.
Respectfully, you don't know who my father was.
I knew he knew how to solve a problem before it became a problem.
Ghost knew how to solve a problem before it became a problem, and these conversations I do think are very important when it comes to Tariq's development. Can Tariq put the chess pieces in position so he can solve a problem before it becomes a problem? He said that he needs to be the one controlling the chessboard, so can he make sure that not just Tasha, Yasmin and Grandma Estelle are safe, but also Diana and his baby? Just like Noma did with Anya at the end of season 3, she solved the problem before it became a problem thanks to Effie. I also once said Tariq is learning more about his father now that he's dead than when he was alive, and it is proven to be the case. But let's see if Tariq can really make these chess moves that Ghost used to make. We have seen Tariq making some very clever chess moves keeping his hands clean in season 4, with the way he managed to get in with Zion, but let's see if he has what it takes to protect the ones he loves, all while trying to reach the top of the game. Now, one person who I think Tariq will need if he is to win is Davis. Tariq wanted Davis McLean in this position working for Noma, and after episode 405, he also finds himself in her bed, which I do think is more so for Davis, but can also definitely work for Tariq, just like Davis once said to Cooper Saxe.
I mean, you get inside, I get info. Sounds like we both win.
He wanted Saxe to keep sleeping with Jenny Sullivan so they could get the upper hand, and he's doing something very similar. But we do have to consider the alternative when it comes to Davis McLean. We have to remind ourselves who he is as a character. He's someone that will always look out for his own self-interests, because he's all about being on the winning side. And when push comes to shove, he's gonna have to make a decision at some point, because between Noma and Tariq, there can only be one winner. So, which side will Davis pick? Or does he continue playing both sides? And if he does, we all know how that ends.
Sounds like Detective Carter couldn't make anything stick on Noma's boy down at the station. He's hungry as fuck, Tariq. And it won't be long before he finds another way in.
Now going into part 2, Carter is another big problem. Tariq knows that he's not going to let go, and we know what Carter's mission is. Play these drug dealers against each other, let them kill each other in the streets, as long as they don't harm any civilians. But I think the goalpost with Carter will move at some point, and I think this is probably the perfect moment to bring in Salim's death. I thought Tariq getting rid of Salim was extremely sloppy and frankly a bit of a mess. Diana said that she hadn't heard from Salim, and I think she knew anyway, which is why she lit a candle for him. But when his body is found, you have to wonder whether this could be something that could come back to haunt Tariq. Someone like Salim who comes from a very wealthy family, his parents definitely won't let this go unanswered. And you do have to assume at some point, his death will be investigated, and I'm sure Carter's not stupid. So, Detective Carter and Salim, that's just another one to keep an eye on for Tariq, as he begins to navigate his way to the top. He's gonna have to constantly look over his shoulder for law enforcement.
Okay, I was out of this shit, and I doubled back to save your ass, and I lost my fucking family over it. My life is falling apart, and I can't even talk about it because it never trumps the latest Tariq crisis. Everything going on in your life is always more fucking important than mine.
Now, this is what Michael Rainey Jr. said in regards to his relationship with Braden in an interview with The People. The road definitely gets bumpy, their friendship will be challenged, and the loyalty will be challenged. So with that being said, even though I completely agree with Braden 100% about Tariq being selfish, who always kind of puts himself first and his family issues first, I think we really do need to talk about Elle. How much of a problem is she going to be for Tariq, considering she knows the ins and outs of their business due to Braden's stupidity with him pillow talking? That's another situation that could come back to expose him. There's also a lot of similarities between Ghost Season 4 and Season 3 of Power. In Season 3 of OG Power, we had the whole Holly situation, with Holly going behind Tommy's back and making a move on Ghost. And I do wonder if history does kind of repeat itself. Will Elle do something behind Braden's back, where like Michael Rainey Jr. said, the loyalty is going to be challenged? So, along with Salim, Noma, his family and Davis McLean, Elle is definitely another problem. Now in the teaser for part 2, we also see two sides of the coin with Tariq. And it is one thing he is going to have to change going forward, which I don't think we'll personally see, at least not in Ghost Season 4. I think it's way too late for him to be able to throw hands now, because if he did, it would just kind of raise questions in terms of where did it come from, and where has it been all this time? But we've got what looks like Zion with a hold of Tariq St. Patrick. How this has come about, who knows? He may have found out about the way Tariq managed to create an opening for himself under his organization, or it could be completely something else. But if Tariq is saying he needs to turn into the apex predator, I want to see him show it. Let's see what you can do in these particular scenarios, because from history, all we've seen is him being thrown around like a ragdoll. Now on the flip side, because we have Zion with Tariq in this position, I think it probably only ends in one way for Zion, which is a shame. I really did like Zion's character and the way they introduced him, his connection to Ghost and Tommy, how he knows a bit about them, but again, just like we've seen Power do before, they made him look weak against Kane, and well, if he's going to go up against Tariq St. Patrick, we all know there's only going to be one winner, even though we know Tariq shouldn't be able to get an upper hand on someone like Zion, at least not a one-on-one anyway, but I can see a scenario playing out with Tariq standing over him and telling him exactly who he is, exactly what he's done, because Zion was saying he was nothing like his father, but just like Tariq killed Jabari in Season 1 and gave him the speech about what he's done and who he's killed, I wouldn't be surprised to see him giving Zion something very similar, where he basically says, "Do you really know who killed Ghost?" just before he pulls the trigger. So with Zion, I do think I might be putting him on my death predictions for part 2. Now elsewhere there's also the storyline with 2-Bit, which I do feel does have to come back at some point. We saw Tariq stealing his car back at the end of 402, and then selling it to someone who Pinky put him in touch with. But even though the car is now gone, you would have to assume 2-Bit is a character who's not going to let this go unanswered. So I am hoping he does return, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he didn't, if I'm going to be totally honest. We know how Power do sometimes, and they have done it before with 2-Bit's character. So let's just wait on the 2-Bit front. But that's a breakdown of where we are with Tariq St. Patrick and the questions in regards to where his character could be heading in regards to him potentially being exposed. I know I may not have touched on the baby situation too much, but it is something that I've already broken down in the Diana Focus breakdown, which I will leave the link to down below. There's also his relationships with Effie and Kane, which is something I'll bring in when I dissect where we are with their storylines and character arcs. But let me know your thoughts in regards to where you think the storyline is heading with all things Tariq. How do you think the story ends for his character going into the home stretch? And will he make it to the top of the game? Drop all your thoughts and predictions down below in the comment section. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.